Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 6th month in our series of the Diversity Matters. This one today, our last one, but last but not least, is how to win at interviews. So we started 6 months ago with how to write an interview-worthy CV. We've obviously touched on how to present your personal brand on social media, how to combat imposter syndrome, and how to find your passion. So it makes sense that the final one in the series is how to win at interviews. Anyone who's joined the series so far will have heard what I'm about to say. So very briefly, and not to bore you, I'm going to just go through my initial slides again. So we're Outsource UK. We recruit into the tech and engineering sectors, and we've got 5 branches across the UK. Today, actually, the 3 of us, so my colleague Rosie, our guest host, who I'll announce later, and myself, we're actually sitting in our Swindon office in the southwest. We've also got an office in Manchester, 1 in London, and 2 in the Midlands. We have a number of trusted clients that we've been working with for a long time, and you can see on the right-hand side of the slide some of those organisations, BAE Systems included, and Nationwide Building Society. Very briefly then, the sectors that we do recruit into, if you know anybody who is looking for work and would like to have a conversation with us, cyber security, defence and engineering, financial services, logistics, public sector and technology and change. So to move on, I'd just like to introduce and welcome our guest host for today's webinar, which is Pearl Noble-Mallock, who is the Head of Product IA and Security at BAE Systems Naval Ships. We know Pearl very well now. She's actually worked with us on a number of our Diversity Matters events that we've run over the course of the last 2 years. So we'd like to thank her once again for her support. Pearl actually recruits into the cybersecurity division and has actually multiplied her team by 7 in the last 2 years. This is a very diverse candidate market. And it's really important to be adaptable when you're interviewing, but also to fit the company processes and the interview protocol, which is very structured with BAE Systems, and Pearl will be able to tell us a bit more about that. So welcome, Pearl.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
I'm going to now hand over to Rosie and to Pearl to continue with this webinar, and you'll see now that we've got the contents up on the screen. If you do have any questions at all, please do write them into the chat box, and I'll be able to interject and ask those questions of our host throughout the course of today.
So one of the first things I want to talk to you about, Pearl, is interview etiquette. So we always tell our candidates, make sure you're on time, make sure you know where you're going, make sure you're suited and booted, you're fully prepared. Even if it's a telephone interview or a face-to-face interview, treat them both exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything you just said. So make sure you do your preparation, you know where you're going, you've got everything you need. Another thing I would say is maybe write up some questions that you might want to ask the interviewers if you haven't been able to find it out on their website, or maybe you just want to get a personal experience with the people working there. That's always good as well, because you're ultimately there to find out more about them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, telephone interviews. A lot of companies now are using telephone interviews not instead, but as well as face-to-face interviews, because recruitment is a huge cost to any business. And if you've got a number of candidates applying for one role, a telephone call is a really quick way to know whether somebody's got the right values for that company, or whether they haven't, whether they're taking it seriously or not. So I would absolutely recommend telephone interviews. Make sure you're somewhere quiet with good phone reception if you're on a mobile phone. Maybe have some notes in front of you about the things that the role profile says that they're looking for, so that you can make sure you get examples in of when you've done something around those particular areas. And also have a bit of background in front of you about the company. The great thing about telephone interviews is that you can actually have everything in front of you, which you can't do in a face-to-face interview. So take full advantage of that.
And that leads us nicely on to different types of interviews. So a lot of businesses do competency-based interviews.
Yeah.
So we kind of, to explain what a competency-based interview is, it gives you an example, it gives you an opportunity to draw upon your experience and your examples and give specific examples back to that question. So questions look like, give me an example of, or describe a time when, or how would you approach this problem. So the tips that we give to our candidates is use the STAR method. So think about a situation, describe the task and what your responsibility was in that situation, what you did, which is your action point, and the result. So for each point in the job spec, say for example it's asking for a number of years experience of information assurance. So where in your last role were you looking at, was it a product that you were assuring, what was the technology, and describe exactly what you did in that scenario and what the outcome was. So it's always good to kind of think about beforehand, what's the job asking for, think in your mind the questions that you might get and the answers that you want to give, so you've already got those.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think a lot of people are using competency-based interviews now because they actually help an interviewer work out what your thought process would be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important because particularly if I look at cybersecurity, we're not always going to get the right technical person that knows about ships and the defence sector. So we are looking for the right behaviours, the right thought processes. And competency questions allow us to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, really important. Make sure you explain what you did as part of that situation and what your part was. A lot of
what we did, I did.
Yeah. So it's very much about you and what you bring to that situation and how you dealt with that situation.
I can understand that's quite a tricky one, I think, because I can understand why people want to obviously demonstrate that they work well in a team.
Yeah.
So there's always that sort of natural feeling to want to say we, and we did this. But it's also very important to remember that it's you that's being interviewed. Actually, yes, okay, it's good to show you work as part of the team, but actually, what did you do? Because it's you, it's not your team that's being interviewed for this role.
And that's a really hard thing to do. You know, if you're that kind of person that's quite empathetic and likes teamwork, it is really difficult to say, I did.
Yeah.
But you do need to make sure you show both sides of it. So you may have been in a team project and you can start to explain that, but you might want to go into the specifics of what you brought to that team project.
Yeah. That's where I think the preparation is key. So think about what are they going to be looking for, what do I really want to get across. So I've got this experience here or this transferable skill, and how you're going to explain that situation. And we give the same advice for people transitioning from the military.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, obviously, BAE Systems Defence actually is not that big a leap to military, but if you need to demilitarise your experience and you're interviewing not in a defence organisation, to be able to give that background scenario for somebody who might not understand military speak. So set your scene, which is your situation, and then talk through specifically what you did and what the reasoning behind that was.
And if you can't think of a scenario from work, I can imagine most companies wouldn't be adverse to this, but we often say, is there an example outside of that you can use? So maybe you're a scout leader or a guide leader, or maybe you're involved in a charity or a school governor or something. You know, you can bring that experience because it shows you're a more rounded person.
Yeah.
And as long as it's showing the right behaviours, the right competencies that the company are looking for, and you'll get that from the job advert. And if you're going through a recruitment agency like Outsource, then whoever you're dealing with at Outsource will be able to give you more advice on what that company is specifically looking for.
Yeah.
So make sure you use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
What type of things do you cover in your interviews then? So we've talked it's competency-based.
So, generally our interviews are competency-based. Occasionally in BAE you might get a second interview as well, which might not because you've done the competency bit. But we also, for certain roles, we might do personality profiling. We might use psychometric testing, certainly for our graduate and apprenticeship schemes, they use psychometric testing. So there's a whole range of things. But one thing I'm very proud of that we do is we're very conscious about unconscious bias. So every interviewer has gone through unconscious bias training to make sure that we understand why that's important. But also, because occasionally some people haven't done interviewing before, we always pair them up with somebody who has. But our interviews are very, very structured. So, we follow this, we have the same questions for a particular role. So we'll write some questions for a particular role, and we'll have some competency and some technical if it's a technical role. And then those questions will be asked to every single candidate to make it a fair process.
Yeah.
And I really recommend that companies do that because it does allow you to compare candidates against each other.
Yeah. And something that we do quite a lot when we're talking to our clients and advising our clients about interview preparation, because of course the managers should prepare in the same way as the candidates should, is that in the same way as we will tell a candidate if they've got a telephone interview that they need to make sure that they've taken some time out, they've gone to a quiet space, if they're at home even better, but treat it in the same way as you would a face-to-face. Equally, we expect that from our clients as well. So, rushing into an interview just minutes before it's due to start, having back-to-back meetings and possibly not being able to dedicate the full half hour, 45 minutes to it, is not good enough. And obviously that starts to then allow unconscious bias to set in. So we're very conscious of that, and we do coach our clients in the same way. So I guess, from a candidate's perspective, give the same respect back.
Yeah,
it works two ways.
And it's in your interest as a company to do that because recruitment costs a huge amount. And, you want to make sure you don't get very long with a person to talk to them, whether it be on the phone or face-to-face.
Yeah.
So that time is precious. And you need to make sure you're getting the right people in who are, going to make a difference, going to make the right impact in your business, and hopefully stay there for quite a long time because it's a two-way thing, and you want them to move you forward, but you want to move them forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what makes a great interview?
I think for me, somebody who's prepared, somebody who has looked into the company values and they can demonstrate that they agree with them, I think is really important. There's a lot of talk these days about the personality of a company, and I think that's quite real. And if you don't fit into that company, it's not good for you or for the company. So you really do need to make sure that you understand the values of the company, that brand, that you're passionate about whatever it is they're doing. So if it's working for BAE Systems, that you are interested in the products that we make, and you're passionate about them, and you're passionate about helping those people on the front line if that's what you're interested in. And so a great interview for me is someone who's done their research on the company. They really want that job because it's more than just a job. It's about they want to be part of that company. Being confident, prepared, asking questions, showing that you're interested and you want to be there.
Have you got any standout interviews in your mind of like maybe grads or maybe not the finished article or returner that's come into the team that did really, really well and you just thought straight away, yes, I want that person on my team?
I can think of we do assessment centres for our apprenticeships, and a couple of years ago there was a particular apprentice who we did offer a job to, and is still in the company, thankfully, who just really stood out to me because they did demonstrate all that passion
Yeah.
And they've worked so hard to get the right grades. You know, they 100% wanted to work for BAE, and there was no other career path for them. That is what they wanted to do, and they had made sure they chose the right college courses and everything. And even outside of work, they'd got involved in, you know, stuff that was relevant.
Yeah.
And they really brought it all to the table. Yeah, just incredible amount of passion, and that for me really stood out.
I think when we're interviewing candidates for cyber, we always say we want the people who are passionate about the industry, not the people who are just chasing the money or the divas. We always ask candidates what they're doing in the spare time.
Yeah.
You know, are they getting involved in CTS? Are they embodying themselves into the community? Are they going to meetups? And you can tell if somebody is passionate or if they don't really want the job, which I think leads us quite nicely on to what makes a bad interview.
A bad interview. Again, it's the opposite. It's, you know, not having much preparation, and as you say, chasing the job just because they need a job, and that might be the case, but don't show that in an interview, because you probably won't get the job. So yeah, bad interview, really lack of preparation. I've had people quite late before. That doesn't always look good. I know sometimes it's unavoidable. If that does happen, by the way, make sure you ring ahead and explain why you're late. As I said before, it costs businesses a lot of money, and usually the people interviewing are fairly senior, so it's a lot of time wasted. So yeah, make sure you call ahead if something like that does happen. And I can give an example of when I've been to an interview and it's gone really badly, because I didn't really want the job and I didn't really agree with what the company was doing. I didn't do my research. You know, I remember feeling quite embarrassed about that when I was leaving. But then I think in hindsight, I didn't really want the job, and I was wasting both their time and my time. And that actual situation was because of a headhunter who didn't spend the time with me to get what I was about. And just said, oh, you need to go to this job, and pressurised me into it and sold that to me without actually getting to know me, because they were working for them. But if you were to work with somebody like you guys, you get to know your people and make sure you put the right candidates forward for a job that's going to be a win-win situation. So don't be sucking into that, because it's a lot of people can contact people now through things like LinkedIn, etc. It's quite dangerous, I think. I think it wastes a lot of time on both sides if it's not done right.
You've got to really understand. I suppose you've got to do a bit of
bad interviews are because their home life isn't right for the job.
Yeah.
You know, if you're in the middle of moving house, having children, or whatever it is, and you want to make a change at the same time, that might not be the best idea. It might work for some people, but don't just do it because you feel like you should.
Yeah.
Everything's got to line up. That work-life balance piece is so important.
A lot of companies now focus on wellness as part of the benefits package, and making sure you're working the right hours. I know BAE Systems have really good
really good flexible working schemes. And if that's important to you, you can find all of that out on people's website or through an agent like Outsource. You can find that out. And that's why I say it's really important to work with somebody. If you're going through an agency to find a new job, make sure they understand what it is that you need work-life balance-wise, because you guys can negotiate that with someone like me.
Yeah.
You know, you could say, all right, I've got you the perfect candidate, but they can't work Fridays. They can only do a 4-day week.
Yeah.
You know, that's a conversation I'm happy to have if it's the right person. But I think people get quite scared about having those conversations.
I think the problem with that is not every organisation advertises on their job specs that they do have flexible working, but normally the agent would know beforehand, and like with our requirements, normally we've at least spoken to the hiring manager. We don't just work from the job spec. We understand from both sides the people needs, so what the candidate's looking for and what the client's looking for, and that's where hopefully we can have those negotiations for you. So what questions should candidates prepare for?
I think particularly if it's a competency-based, have a look at the job spec. If you can get more information from an agent, then do. Try and put yourself in their shoes, so what would they, if you were them, what would they be looking for from that candidate? And then you can go, right, okay, I think these are the competencies that I need to demonstrate, and write down some examples of how you've demonstrated those. Take it with you so that you don't forget, and you can get all of those things into your answers.
Yeah. Because I suppose whatever paperwork you take with you, whether it's prompt notes to help you or whether it's information you've taken from their website, it all shows that you've prepared for the interview.
Absolutely.
So there's no real sort of negative way that can be taken, because actually, okay, fine, you might need something to help you remember what you want to say, but you've written that because you've been preparing for the interview, so it's all positive.
Yeah.
And what questions do you like candidates to ask?
One I've liked before is what's a day in your job like? You know, what do you think of the company? It's trying to get to the depth of what that company is like to work in. I like those questions because it shows that you're actually interested in the company. There's lots of good questions. I think just make sure you show you've got an interest in whatever it is.
I always ask when I go on client meetings, why do you love working for BAE Systems? What do you love about your role? What's the most rewarding part of your job? Because that gives you an insight into, every person always has a different answer as well. And it kind of puts the interviewer back on the spot, and that's your chance to see, okay, what is the culture like? Because sometimes a company can advertise the culture as one thing, but actually when you look under the lid, it's not quite like that. And it's as much an interview for the candidate as it is for the client, particularly, like you say, within niche skill sets like cybersecurity. It's a two-way process. They're normally interviewing at multiple places.
I think anything that shows that you're interested in that particular company is a good question to ask.
Do you like it when candidates ask how they've done, or do you have any doubts about their ability?
I don't think anyone's ever asked me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Probably because we always end our interview with, this is the next step. You get feedback like this. We obviously give feedback to everyone whether you got the job or not.
Which is so important.
Because people can improve from there, can't they? And I think you should always remember, if you don't get a job, it's for a reason. It's not a good fit both ways. And that's saving you so much time. You know.
And heartache.
Yeah.
If you start a role and it's not right, that's not fun for anybody.
No.
So finally, what would you say your top tips are for a candidate, just to summarise?
Preparation is key, so find out where you're going, what you're going to wear, make sure that's all done the day before. And actually, that's a good point. Make sure all your prep is done like the day before. You don't want to be thinking about it on the day. A lot of people will cram it in last minute and then you get really flustered. So you want to feel nice and calm and relaxed on the day. So preparation. If you're doing telephone interviews, the same preparation, and use it to your advantage. You can have all your notes in front of you. Make sure you look into the company, what their values, what their brand is. Make sure they align with you. If they don't waste your time. Another one I haven't mentioned is one of the things that's quite good to do is look on Companies House, because they often have an end of year report, which some companies, the directors will actually put a personal message in for their shareholders. And that's quite an interesting read, which you might get some really good questions from, but it also shows you've looked into that company in quite a lot of detail.
I think as well, to add to that, have confidence. So remember that if you were invited to interview, there's something about your CV that's made that person want to talk to you more. So we talked about obviously really wanting the role and that passion coming through in the way that you're talking, but also confidence really does sell. And so trust that they want to see you because they want to potentially offer you the job.
Yeah.
And so, you know, go in and really sell yourself.
Without arrogance.
Yeah.
I must add.
Yeah, true.
Eye contact there. I know we haven't talked about physical things, making sure you're looking the person in the eye. Because you can at least fake it. You can fake being confident even if you are a bit nervous or you're returning. So smile when you dial is what we used to always say when we're doing a phone interview.
Yeah.
And look the person in the eye.
I had a question actually that was emailed through to me from someone who was unable to dial in. So obviously a lot of businesses now are following a more agile approach in their working practices, which also comes through in their work attire. So for an interview, if you know that the organisation is fairly relaxed in terms of you know, business dress, should you still attend the interview suited and booted?
That's a really good question. Personally, I always go smarter than, it's better to be smarter than scruffy.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think every job is different. And I was actually having this conversation yesterday evening with a friend who's going to an interview. And he's not going to dress smart because of the type of work he does.
Okay.
So I think it is important to know what it is you're going for and what that organisation is like.
You can at least be smart casual.
Yeah. I think always go on the smarter side than what you think.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should be appropriate to the company.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you can take a tie off at the last minute.
And
you can take a suit jacket off at the last minute.
I've had people do that in interview.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. I don't have any problems with that.
Yeah.
You want someone to be comfortable at the end of the day as an interviewer, so.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you are going for a really smart company where everyone does wear a suit and a tie, then make sure you dress that way.
Yeah. What about then, just to take that to the extreme, and I guess again this is personal preference perhaps, but what about when you're offered tea and coffee? You know, should you politely decline these things, or should you, if you really want a cup of coffee, should you just say, actually I'd like one, or?
I think if you're being offered it, you can say yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any problem with that at all.
Okay.
Because often, I've been in interviews where, you know, I've had a cup of tea and the other interviewer with me has had a cup of tea, so to almost say no is a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
So I think just gauge the situation.
Yeah.
If it's a friendly organisation.
I think a lot of interviews now happen. I know when we're interviewing, we go and have a coffee with the person first, and it's a lot more casual, and then it becomes more formal, and you kind of selling the company and understanding their needs first. I think a lot of interviews now are a chat over a coffee and a bit more informal that way.
Yeah, some are, some aren't. I think it really depends. But I definitely recommend from an employer point of view that whatever you do with one candidate, you do with every candidate. You know, so we've known we've been short on time before, so therefore we just have water in the room and we've done that for everyone, and we've done the coffee thing. Yeah. So whatever you do as an employer, just be consistent. But yeah, I think if someone offers you coffee, you can say yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Did we have any other questions at all?
I know there was a question about flexible working.
Right, okay.
If somebody would like flexi working or shorter hours or pickups, when is the best time to ask that question?
I think that's one of the advantages of going through an agency like yourself, because you guys can have that conversation in advance. I think it's a really difficult one, and I think it comes down to the personality of the people that are interviewing, because they might not even be the right people anyway, because it's often HR that deal with that. But if it's something that's make or break for you, I think you need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Whether you do it in the interview or after.
Or at the end of the interview.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters, but it needs, obviously, that conversation to happen. what you wouldn't want to do. So if you were the right candidate, if someone's going to fight for you, you don't want to waste their time. So they need to know once you've been offered the job, you definitely need to have that conversation right then.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're going to waste their time trying to figure it out for you.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think we said earlier that it's so difficult to find the right people now. So if you do find the right people, and it's just they need a bit of flexibility here and there. I know from our company we're quite good with that anyway, because we do flexible working. But I can't see why people wouldn't help that situation.
Yeah.
If it is the right person. And they bring the right things to the table.
Yeah, and it fits with both the client and the candidate, and particularly for your
project. Another good example of why you should use a recruitment agency like Outsource.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. So just to close then, so I've left this slide up on the screen, which just gives you a little bit of an intro into Pearl. And I'd like to say thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate the support that you've shown us with all of the work that we've been doing with diversity and inclusion. And I'm sure that we'll be working with you again soon as well. The recording from this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. So we will release that shortly and also forward it via social media. The other 5 recordings are also available on there. So if you did miss any of them, you can go back onto there and listen to all 6. If you have any questions at all, you can contact myself or Rosie. Rosie is our manager for our cyber division, but she also works with me on diversity and inclusion initiatives. And you can contact us via diversity@outsource-uk.co.uk, or you can connect with either of us on LinkedIn. And I'm sure that, I hope I'm not saying anything that you wouldn't want, but I'm sure that Pearl would be happy to receive any questions via LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time today, everyone, and thank you again, Pearl.
Thank you.
Bye.